Well, I'm going to talk about our typical days. And when we first arrived, like Lisa has said, that they took us to the compound. It was at night, but they had a big bus that they put us on, and of course we had to make sure that we, when we landed, actually, we landed right, we walked off on the landing strip. That's where we walked into the building, was on the landing strip. So, and then everything just went from there. When we got there that night, why they had supper waiting for us, and they told us that we were expected to eat. You know, after that traveling that long, you're kind of, it just kind of, it takes a while for your body to adjust to everything. And so they had for us, we had mangoes, we had sliced cucumbers, and we had rice and meat sauce. And of course we always had, in the mornings we had coffee and tea, but then we had salt and pepper because we've taken it. So you just don't have those things, and some people had taken a little garlic and things like that to flavor things up, because it was sort of bland in a way at first. So in the mornings when we got up, people got up at different times. I mean, some people were up there at 5 o'clock in the morning and usually go into the dining area where the tables were, and they bring in the coffee at about 6 o'clock. And it's camp coffee, it's boiled coffee. Well, before that happened though, the gong went off at 3 o'clock in the morning, which you saw was the tire rim and somebody going like this on it. Carly was holding it, and that was for the Bible school. So they got up at 3 o'clock and started their praying and their schoolwork. And then the 3 cooks that we had were Martin, Michael, and Ezekiel. And they were hired to come and prepare all our meals for us. So they had this little camp shack kind of, and it was made out of tarps, and they had these little hibachis, 2 little hibachis that they cooked everything for us on there. And I kind of wondered how to get the rice going, but it was all cooked and it was okay. It was great. So, and like Lisa said, the showers were either cold or really cold. And so we finally got to the point where at times it was just tits, pits, and its, because it was just so cold that you just wanted to get done as fast as you could. So anyway, the coffee was ready, and then Mary would be working on the emails that she sent out, and those were passed around. And then before we had our devotions or breakfast that morning, she would read to us what she was going to send out, and then people could add things that they wanted included in the discussion for what was going on with it. Our devotions, we took turns doing devotions, and some of us were better at it than others of us. But, you learn to share your feelings and the scripture that you want to share, and we always said grace before every meal. So that was great. For breakfast, we had coffee and tea. We had hard-boiled eggs. And after 3 weeks of hard-boiled eggs, they don't taste quite as good. But somebody had brought some hot sauce. Well, that turned out hot sauce on a hard-boiled egg is pretty good. And we had bread and a toaster, which Marcia realized that toasters and bread go together. And we had peanut butter because we brought it. Someone brought jam. So our breakfast was pretty much the hard-boiled eggs, the bread, and it was always white bread. And then we had oftentimes these little bananas. And you see those here in stores, but they're really expensive, but they're really good. And they're just about that big in size. And we had all we wanted to eat, so nobody was ever hungry. So then we went up to the clinic. The clinic is a new building You go in through the center of it, and there's rooms on both sides, and Marcia may elaborate more on it. But the big thing at first was we saw that it was so mucky, and the floors were so dirty at first. And the other thing was there wasn't any running water. So there was the cleanliness for doing the medical care was a really big issue. So in the brainstorming sessions, Marcia's husband ordered camp washing facilities, they had the plastic buckets there, but so it was by using email and ingenuity and trying to figure out that, and it was in large part Marcia and Carly kind of got that whole thing going so that the second group that came, they would have hand washing facilities in the clinic. So we, on days that we went outside of that clinic area, we loaded into a cattle truck. We were in the back. And they have the big bars over the boxes, and that was so when it rained that they had something to tie the tarps to. And that's where Lisa and Liz and all of them came in, because they had these boxes ready. And talk about a hard worker. Lisa is just amazing in her organizational skills and her commitment to doing so much for everybody. And so anyway, getting up into the truck was, because it was about this high to get up into it. So you'd either have a chair that was wobbling like this, and of course everybody was helping each other. Then we had these two benches along either side of the truck. In the back, they weren't anchored either. So some people sat and some people stood hanging on the bars. But you wanted to make sure that you weren't right where the bar, the one that goes across this way, because then when you hit a big bump, you can mash your head on the bar. And then the boxes and stuff were up front, and everybody had their own pack with, like Lisa said, you had to have your stethoscope and your blood pressure cuff and your thermometers, and we had some little toys for the kids, which kind of helped break the ice a little bit for the children. And then we got to the clinic site, and it was a matter of setting up. And as we came, people were lined up, and just the lines wound around. And as we were there, more people kept coming and coming. And they had these like little brown lunch sacks that they would give to people to take their stuff in. Well, Tim or somebody figured out that we'd give them a number so that you could kind of keep some order, so that it was a fair system. So they'd come up with their little sack, and if somebody got out of order, you kind of tried to get them back into, so it was a fair system. But it was amazing the number of people. So then it was a matter of setting up, doing an intake, and I did with Mary Nielsen. She and I did most of the intakes, and there were a few like we streeted and treated, because there were so many. And by streeted and treated, we would go through what their needs were, and some of the time, if it was just ibuprofen and things like that, and they didn't need something more, why Mary and I dealt with that. We also dealt with some of the elevated blood pressures and other things. So then we would have them go on and see either the physicians or the two nurses that worked inside. They were both from St. Pat's, very well qualified, excellent nurses. Young, and one of the gals is the one who climbed Kilimanjaro. And she's an Amazon woman, I guess you'd call her. She could do anything. And anyway, the equipment that we had, Dr. Jones loaned her medical, like her stethoscopes or otoscopes or and all that kind of stuff for us to use, because we needed those things. And so anyway, let me see, then it was a matter of inside, getting them to the right area. So you'd have chairs where they would sit down, and they would wait for their turn to come. And then if things that we got for some of the families, they all had intestinal parasites, so that was one of the things that we would go up to the pharmacy table, and everything was kept track of, so we knew what else was needed and how much more. I think one day we ended up giving out 2,000 pills for intestinal parasites. But we had some other days that we did some other things. Oh, one day when we went to a clinic in Kilgore, there were so many people that by the end of the second day, we were only going to be there for 2 days. There were so many people that Tim and Mary decided we needed to come back a third day. And we still had 75 people to see. And that was the day as Mary Nielsen and I were setting up our area, because we were outside. One of the local women went by with chicken squawking, and Mary said, "There goes lunch." And sure enough, that was lunch. Where we went, the people were preparing the meals for us, and we had coffee breaks, and we were sort of obligated to go, although there were times that the docs didn't go because they were just too busy. And then they prepared lunch for us, and one of the things that they asked us, whatever you take, eat, because someone is going without, so you can eat. So it doesn't matter. Now, Marcia, I think, got a goat tongue once, and somebody got a chicken foot, so, but it was all good, and it was clean. A lot of rice and bananas, and we had kale, chopped kale. I really liked that. I thought that was really good. It was a little bitter, but it was just chopped kale, straight kale. The interpreters were really interesting. And I think Marcia will tell a little bit more about that. But it was difficult sometimes, although their English is quite good. When you were doing an intake on a patient, you would talk to the interpreter, and they would start talking to this patient. And the conversation went on and on and on and on and on. You'd say, his neck hurts. Well, how did he do all that? So then I think, okay, maybe I should ask it in a different way. So then I try, another way. And so you just kept working to try to elicit what you thought maybe was going on. Like, so what was it when they did, like down here, what was that all about? And one day I had this one patient, he came in, and he had these two little kids, boy and a girl, I think. And so we talked about the children and what they were, and then I said, well, he's the grandfather. Well, the interpreter talked to him, and no, he's the father. And he was 76. And so then I asked it in a different way. And no, he was, so when we finally got done, I sent him on and Marcia ended up with him. Well, I have to tell this. So Marcia went through the same thing with the interpreter. You're the grandfather. No, he's the father. And finally she said, well, congratulations. We had one day that we went to the orphanage, and you maybe saw the bus stuck in the mud. Well, it had rained quite a bit, and we got into a big rut, but fortunately we were able to get out. The orphanage was children who didn't have parents, and it was a hard thing to see. But Marcia and Carly and the two nurses from St. Pat's, they had stations, and they did physicals on the children. Kelly did dental assessment for all the children. We gave all the kids toothbrushes and toothpaste as long as we had it, and toothbrushes for every member. If it was a family, we did it for every member in the family, because we didn't want them sharing toothbrushes. We wanted them each to have their own. So, I don't know, there's so much to talk about, but we had a great experience in many ways. It was, and I have to tell you, and you would know it, but Marcia and Dr. Carly were the most wonderful team. Everybody, oh, they were so good. They were just amazing. And Lisa did such a wonderful job that it was a pleasure to be part of it, and we appreciate the fact that you supported us, prayed for us, and kept us in your thoughts. Thank you.